Hey, beautiful souls. Thank you for being here today. My name is Carolina. I'm sure this is not the first time you have heard me here on the YouTubes. But if it is your first time, welcome. My name is Carolina and I am the founder of Quest Mystic. And today we are going to talk about how to read one's birth chart for self-awareness, because ultimately I believe astrology is a beautiful tool, language, and practice to help us to get out of our own way, right? Who wouldn't want that? Wouldn't you? I do. So let's begin. So now, the first thing that you're going to want to do is to grab your birth chart. Do you have that? If you don't, go grab it right now. All right, wonderful. So you have your birth chart. The next thing you're going to ask me is, what do I do with all this gobbledygook that is sitting in my face right now? And I am going to share with you some very simple tips on how to begin this process of self-awareness. Now, what is self-awareness? Self-awareness is essentially being aware of ourselves, aware of our own limitations, our own biases, our own shit, whatever you want to call it. It's being aware of ourselves and understanding that we all have some place in our lives that needs attention, that it needs more tender loving care, that needs some changes. And astrology is a perfect tool to do that with. So now that you have your chart in front of you, let's begin. So, the biggest thing that I want you to understand is that you can't get away from truly understanding your sun, moon, and rising with if that's uh, if those three things are still unsure for yourself, meaning you're not really certain what a moon sign means, what a sun sign means, and what the rising sign means, then you've got homework to do, because that's where we're going to be focused on a lot in our self-discovery, self-awareness journey. And it's the idea of learning astrology and understanding it is a process of, yes, looking at the chart, but also living it. And that's what I want to help you do here, right? Because you have a piece of paper, ideally, with some symbols on it, but you're not really sure, like, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And that's generally typically the problems with many newbies, is that they want to learn the whole chart at once. And I'm here to tell you that it's not possible to learn the chart all at once. You actually need to do it step by step by step by step. And if you don't want to do that, then it becomes very difficult to go down the path of self-awareness with astrology if you're unwilling to discover the full breadth of what astrology is. So let's begin. And I have some notes in front of me that I'm reading here so I can stay on track with all of you. So as I mentioned, the biggest newbie mistake, the biggest astrology beginner mistake that people make is trying to attempt the whole chart. So instead, I want you to start with something different. I want you to ask yourself, what is it you're feeling right now? Yeah, what is it you're feeling right now? Are you feeling reactive lately? What's draining your energy? What about what needs attention from you, within you? Those are three great starting points. So instead of focusing on the chart and saying, this symbol here supposedly says that I'm going to win the lottery. No. Why not first have some inquiries about your state of mind, where things are in your heart, where things are in your relationships with others? The moment we ask ourselves these reflective questions is when we can start on tapping and uncovering what astrology has to offer us. So start small and start with a conversation. So let's go deeper. So the first thing that I want you to do, which is I mentioned earlier, is that sun, moon, and rising, right? Those three core things. Why? Because the sun tells me a lot about your energy and your will. the purpose of you here on earth. Your moon tells me a lot about how you do your emotions and your comfort zones, right? Wouldn't you want to know that? But in learning these two things, as well as your rising sign, it requires you to understand that each zodiac sign has a positive and a not so positive angle. That's right. Every zodiac sign has the potential of being awesome and not so awesome, right? That shouldn't come as a surprise to you. If you've had any run-ins with society, you know that some of your things that have been projected or said or done haven't been like your greatest moments. And when we understand that each zodiac sign and each planet has the ability to both be awesome and not so awesome, then you begin this process of self-awareness. Now, the rising sign tells me how you show up in the world, how others perceive you, and how you see life through this lens called the rising sign. Now, if you're born during a time that your parents don't know exactly what time you were born, you can still generate a chart and get a sense of your sun and most likely your moon, but not necessarily your rising sign. Now, there are other techniques you can use to determine that, and I do have a blog post that I covered on how to read your birth chart without a time, and I'll link that in the show notes here. So, those three, your sun, your ego, the purpose, your will, your moon, how you do your emotions, what you need to feel comfortable, how you navigate these spaces, right? Are those two things are very important. And then the rising sign colors everything, right? You experience life through your rising sign, and the rising sign is what most people see about you before they get to know your sun and your moon. So here's a journal prompt for you. Ask yourself, which one of these feels most off at this time? And have a conversation with that part of yourself. Ask it, what is it that is needed at this time? What is it that I need to honor? What is going on in my view of life that needs a different shift? Those three things can help begin this process of self-awareness. Just asking yourself these questions can help you have a dialogue with parts of yourself that might be lost, that you haven't known were there for you to experience and understand. So instead of trying to memorize all the various words and keywords associated with each planet and each sign, I want you to just focus on asking that particular question. What is it that it feels most off right now? And how can we learn about each other? And then journal about that. Ask these questions and write it down. I know many people out there really poo-poo journaling, and it's difficult for them to find a quiet time to just write down thoughts. Try to do that, even if it's for a minute. You don't have to go for hours. Even a minute of jotting down whatever words come to you, whatever feelings come to you, is a beautiful way to start this process. All right, so let's continue. Then, what I want you to do is I want you to find the portion of your chart, a house, right? The houses are the 12 segments of your chart that says where energy is concentrated and playing out. So for example, if you have a concentration of planets in the third house, then that tells me that you're very occupied with the activities in that space, such as traveling short distances, the ins and outs of your siblings, right? Their lives. You're perhaps learning in your local environment. Perhaps you're a communicator and you really like to communicate and learn. So these are third house areas. Okay, so wherever you have a big concentration of planets or planets, then I want you to look at that house. I want you to go into that space about in your life and ask yourself, what does this mean to me? What is it that I need to learn more about when I have, say, 3 or 4 planets in a particular house? When you have a large concentration of planets in a house, that means that you are here to do a lot of work in that space. That this particular part in your life takes the most energy from you. Okay? So find that room, find that house in your chart and ask who's living there? What planets are available there for you? Are there, is it your sun, your moon, your Mercury, or is it others? Whatever is there, that's the place that you need to go deeper in understanding what it is that you're here to do. Now, the other big piece that you could explore is by finding your loudest planet. Now, this isn't a technical term, loudest planet. In fact, you can easily just find multiple of those, I'm sure, if you were to look a little bit deeper. But the loudest planet in my mind would be one that has a lot of aspects, a lot of lines pointing to it or going to it. And why is that? Because the more lines going to a planet, the more action is going to be happening in that space of your life. Right? Maybe this is Jupiter for you. That is the loudest because it has squares and trines and sextiles. These are aspects. Maybe it's more in the middle of your chart. Maybe it's at the very bottom or at the top or in the first or the seventh. Whatever it is, I want you to find the planet that has many points connected to it, or find a planet that sits in the first, fourth, seventh, or 10th house. Why is that? Because those parts, those 4 houses, are very important in our charts. They are sensitive areas. So if you have planets in those spaces, then you have a lot of things to uncover for yourself. All right. Then what I want you to do is look for aspects. Now, this is a little bit more advanced than what I normally teach newbies because I really want you to first learn what are the 12 houses, even before the houses, what are the 12 signs? If you can't name all 12 signs, then you are still at step 0. That's right. If you don't know all 12 signs, then you are at step 0, maybe step 1, but you need to learn all 12 signs. And by that, I mean, I need you to name them in order, name them by grouping of element, and perhaps name the ruler. If you know those things, then you've got a good foundation. Then the next layer of understanding the zodiac would be for you to be able to tell me the pluses and minuses of each. If you're still at only learning your sun sign, then you have 11 signs to go. All right? So that's your that's your homework. Now, aspects tells me about the relationships between planets in your chart. Whenever you have lines connecting planets, those are aspects. And each of those aspects tells us how things are moving for you in life. Excuse me. All right, so I'm back. I've been having this coughing fit and I didn't want to spill it all over all of you all. So I'm back. Let's continue. So we were talking about aspects. So what are aspects? This is a little bit more advanced than I would recommend for those that are starting out with learning astrology, especially if you're trying to uncomplicate things. Okay. So perhaps you're at this stage, maybe you're not. I don't know. I'm just going to share it. So aspects are the lines that you see in your chart connecting planets in your chart. It can also be a line, say, from your ascendant to the north node. Okay, so it's not just planets generally mapped in the birth chart with the aspects, but generally that's what we're going to look at and talk about. Now, these aspects are essentially tells you and me what by looking at them is the relationship that is happening between these particular parts within you. And so for me, for example, I have sun, moon, square. And that means that I was born during a first quarter square, actually, and that they're in a challenging tension between my sun and my moon. Okay. Now, you might think like, huh, wow, do I have that? Do I have a tension, square, conflict between my sun and my moon? Maybe, perhaps. But when you study astrology, you inevitably learn about transits and cycles. And the moon, if you know your moon astrology, your moon goes all the way through the zodiac every 28, 30 days, right? It's about 2.5 days that it spends per sign, and it goes and does that dance. And the sun and the moon have their own dance together, and that creates the moon phases. And so you may have a first quarter square between your sun and the moon, because that interaction happens twice per month, and the first quarter and then the last quarter. And the opposition would be people who are being born as full moon babies, the sun in one sign and then the moon in the opposite sign of the sun. Or perhaps you're born during a new moon, and that would be having the sun and the moon in the same sign or very close to it. So these aspects tell us about what is naturally happening within you. And this is really the piece when it comes to self-awareness and astrology that inevitably you're going to get to. Okay. You really first need to start with those understanding the 12 signs, the 10 planets, the 12 houses before you get to this point. Because by the time you get to this point, you're going to have a level of awareness about yourself where you'll be like, huh, is that what's happening? That's that's wild. I want to look more into that. And so what I want you to ask yourself is, where are you feeling pulled apart in two different directions? Where perhaps do you feel like things are really flowing in life? Where are things constantly at a rub for you in life? Don't mind what is happening specifically in your chart. Just be more inquisitive of what this may feel like in your life. Okay. So the part of self-awareness in exploring our charts is one that we start in bits and pieces, and then inevitably we start and pull together all of it into one sentence. Okay. And when you get to the one sentence level or the two or the paragraph, you're going to tell me things like, man, I'm learning to let go of needing to control things in my relationships. That speaks to, say, like a Venus and Scorpio in the seventh house. Venus, Scorpio being a very intense energy of wanting to really to hold on to things, perhaps through power. And Venus is the part within us that is about relationships. And then the seventh house also about relationships. If you had, say, Venus in Scorpio in the third, this would be about communications, your siblings, your immediate surroundings in your neighborhood. If it was in your second, then it would be about your values, your self-worth, how you make money. Um, yeah, and what you really stand for. Those are the themes of the second, amongst other things. But what I am trying to educate you on is that it begins before you get to this one level sentence. You need to go back, and through the exploration of each of those elements, the more you become aware of yourself, of the things that bother you, of the things that you're like, oh yeah, this is amazing. I really do love this part about myself, and I want to know how to do more of that. That's the beauty of astrology. Getting to that level of awareness of our potential, an ability to provide some grace to our past life, before we got to where we're at today. It gives you that lens, that perspective, and a tool to go back and look at your past with some level of empathy and sympathy and grace, knowing you were doing the best that you could. And now you have this tool on the side of you right now, right? Like, you have your birth chart, and you're likely like, I don't know if I make sense of that, but start with the very basics. Start with asking yourself, what's going on with you in your heart? What's going on in your life? Write those things down, and then slowly start exploring each of these pieces so that you can come to a realization of what the work is. What is it that you are here to do? And what are you here to heal? And what are the things that you are here to shine and to share with others? Beautiful, beautiful astrology. So that's how we do astrology for self-awareness. At the end of the day, is when you start exploring that chart. That's how we do it. Live it, acknowledge it, and then hopefully you can start releasing the things that no longer serve you because you've now met it and seen it for what it is. So just remember, your birth chart is not a rule book. It literally is just a mirror, a very, very wise, weird, funky mirror. And you're not defined by your chart. The ancient astrologers really did believe that, but we're in modern times where we are able to surpass our abilities that we had in the past. We can create something new for ourselves. And you're in relationship with that chart. It's not separate from you. You are with it all the time. So this week, I want you to pick one question that's been sitting in your mind when you look at the chart and really just ask it to yourself. Go inward and ask, well, what needs help? And then go through the tools that I share and linked in my blog, as well as linked below, to go a little bit deeper to find more meaning behind some of these symbols and what the zodiac and the planets have to say. So if you had any aha moments during this time, please drop them in the comments. I am so happy to continue sharing this with all of you. My membership is open. I have new material dropping every single month. You can join me at questmystic.com/join UPC. And I'll also include in the comments a link to my Facebook group, questmystic.com/Facebook. And there's also a link to a freebie. So grab those, and I'll see you next time. And we'll go, continue down this rabbit hole of exploration and astrology. And thank you so much. I'll see you again. Carolina from Quest Mystic. Bye.